There are moments in life that don't just hurt. They awaken something inside you, a fire you didn't know existed. This is one of those moments. He kicked her out. The man she trusted, the father of her children, the one she built a life with, threw her out of their home without a second thought. No warning. No remorse. Just a door slammed on her dreams, her dignity, her security. And with that one act of cruelty, he thought he had destroyed her. He thought she would vanish quietly, crumble under the weight of humiliation, disappear into the shadows of the life he controlled. But he was wrong, because what he didn't see was the strength hiding beneath the tears, the courage born from years of sacrifice, the fire that no betrayal could extinguish. She didn't give up. She didn't beg. She didn't break. She fought. For her children, for her dignity, for the life that he tried to steal. And when she found herself cleaning the very office where he ruled, scrubbing floors while he sat in his glass tower of arrogance, she realized something extraordinary was about to happen. The secretary, a timid woman drowning in her own sorrow, leaned close and whispered words that would change everything. "Hide under the desk, he's about to have a secret meeting. You need to hear the truth." That whisper wasn't just a warning, it was a key. A spark, a doorway into the heart of his lies, his betrayals, and his greed. And for the first time, she saw a way to turn humiliation into power, betrayal into strategy, and weakness into unstoppable strength. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. This isn't just a story about being cast aside. This is the story of a woman who refused to be defeated, who turned every insult, every betrayal, every act of cruelty into the fuel that would ignite her revenge. Stay with me. Because what she hears under that desk doesn't just shock her. It changes everything. And the woman he thought he destroyed is about to rise with a force he never imagined. Get ready. The fire has been lit, the plan is in motion, and justice, unyielding, precise, and unstoppable, is coming. This is a story of betrayal, awakening, and revenge so perfect it leaves the guilty speechless. The betrayal didn't happen in a heated argument or a dramatic explosion. It happened in cold blood. Calculated. Deliberate, heartless. One ordinary morning, he looked at her with the kind of emptiness she had never seen in his eyes before, and with a voice stripped of emotion, he told her to leave. No explanation, no mercy, no moment to gather strength. Just a command that shattered the ground beneath her feet. She stood there, holding their youngest child on her hip, with breakfast still cooking on the stove, and listened as the man she once trusted with her entire heart told her she no longer belonged in the home she helped build. He had everything: money, power, status, and yet he treated her like she was disposable, like her years of loyalty and love meant absolutely nothing. He didn't give her a choice. He didn't give her a second chance. He didn't even give her dignity. He simply kicked her out and slammed the door behind her, leaving her and their children standing outside in the biting wind with nothing but a few bags and a heart already starting to crack. The betrayal was so deep, so vicious, that it felt like her entire world had been ripped from her chest. She had given up her dreams for him, supported him through every failure, celebrated every success, and raised their children while he built his empire. And now, that same man was tossing her aside like trash, like she had never mattered. She searched for answers in his expression, but all she saw was arrogance. The arrogance of a man who believed she was powerless. A man who believed she was too weak, too dependent, too broken to survive without him. He walked away without a second glance, confident she would beg, plead, crumble. But she didn't. Pride held her upright. Love for her children gave her breath. And betrayal lit the fire that would eventually burn his lies to the ground. She had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. She rented the cheapest apartment she could find, small, cold, barely livable. She tucked her kids into thin blankets at night, promising them better days even when she herself wasn't sure how she'd make it through the next sunrise. She sold jewelry he gave her just to buy groceries. She walked miles because she couldn't afford gas. Every humiliation carved itself into her memory, But instead of destroying her, it hardened her. When she learned that his company had a janitorial opening, she took it, not out of desire, but necessity. The thought of scrubbing floors in the empire she helped him build was painful, humiliating, almost unbearable. But she did it. She put on the uniform. She held her head high. And she walked into that building as a woman determined to survive. Every mop stroke was a reminder of what he stole from her. Every trash bag she carried was a symbol of how far she had fallen. But inside that pain lived a quiet rage, a growing strength. He thought kicking her out would break her. He thought she would disappear. He thought she would stay silent. But he didn't know he had awakened a different version of her. One forged in betrayal, fueled by grit, and destined to rise again. A woman who had lost everything had nothing left to fear. And that is exactly what would make her his greatest undoing. There comes a moment in every shattered woman's life when the world expects her to collapse, to kneel in defeat, to surrender her fire, and that is exactly the moment she discovers the unbreakable steel within her soul. When he threw her out like she was nothing. When he stood in the doorway of the house they built together and shut the door on her tears. She felt the kind of pain that almost steals the breath from a mother's chest. But she refused to crumble. With her children holding onto her hands, terrified, confused, cold, she wiped her face, lifted her chin, and faced the merciless world with a heart that refused to quit. Every insult, every humiliation, every reminder of everything she'd lost could have crushed her, but instead it hardened her resolve like fire forging iron. She searched for work with swollen eyes and trembling hope, taking job after job until she found herself scrubbing floors inside the very company run by the man who betrayed her. And each night, when exhaustion clung to her bones, she looked at her children sleeping and whispered promises into the darkness. Promises that someday, somehow, the world would know her worth. Her strength wasn't loud. It wasn't glamorous. It was the quiet, relentless courage of a mother who refuses to let life destroy her children's future. It was the storm that gathers after the sky has been mocked one time too many. And though he believed he had broken her, he had unknowingly awakened a force far more powerful than he could ever imagine. A mother who has faced betrayal, hunger, humiliation, and despair, and still walks forward, becomes a warrior no storm can defeat. Her pain became her armor. Her tears became her fire. Her children became her purpose. And her purpose became her unstoppable strength. What he meant to destroy became the very force that would one day bring him to his knees. From the very first day she entered the building with her cleaning cart and silent determination, she noticed something strange, an unspoken sorrow hanging around the secretary like a shadow that refused to leave. The young woman's eyes were always red, her smile forced, her hands trembling as she typed. At first, she assumed it was stress or overwork, but the deeper she looked, the more she realized this wasn't simple exhaustion. This was the quiet agony of someone trapped in a cage built from secrets. Whenever the husband walked past, the secretary's shoulders stiffened, and her breath caught like she was preparing for a blow she had learned to expect. And when she thought no one was watching, tears would slip down her cheeks silently, as if she had cried so much she'd learned to do it without sound. That pain was too familiar. It was the same pain she herself had carried the night he threw her out. So she watched carefully, gently, waiting for the moment the truth would reveal itself. And then one night, while she was cleaning the office long after closing hours, the secretary approached her with fear in her eyes and a truth trembling on her lips. "Hide under the desk," she whispered, voice shaking. "He's about to have a meeting, a secret meeting. You need to hear what he's been doing." In that moment, everything shifted. The sorrow in the secretary's eyes wasn't just her own. It was the weight of lies, manipulation, and cruelty that had been festering inside the company. She wasn't just crying for herself. She was crying for every life the husband had shattered, every injustice he had buried, every sin he believed would stay hidden. And she wasn't warning out of fear. She was warning out of solidarity. She had seen the truth of who the husband really was, and she knew the woman who had been cast out deserved to know too. Her pain was the key. Her tears were the signal. Her whisper was the spark. And what the woman would hear under that desk was the beginning of a storm that would turn betrayal into justice, humiliation into victory, and quiet suffering into roaring revenge. The moment came quietly, like a breath before a hurricane. She had been scrubbing the marble floors of his office, moving methodically, keeping her head down, pretending the world hadn't broken her the way he had. She had learned to disappear in plain sight, to blend into the shadows of his empire, to become invisible in a building where once she had held authority by mere association. But that day something shifted. The secretary approached her, eyes wide and red-rimmed, hands trembling slightly as she leaned close. Her voice was barely audible, a fragile thread of sound, yet it carried the weight of secrets, of warnings, of truths that could no longer be contained. "Hide under the desk," she whispered. "He's about to have a secret meeting. You need to hear the truth." Those words struck her like a lightning bolt. Every nerve in her body hummed with a sudden clarity. This wasn't just information. It was a lifeline, an opportunity, a key to a door she didn't even know was locked. Without hesitation, she obeyed, sliding under the heavy desk like a predator crouching before the hunt. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the anticipation of the revelation she was about to witness. For months, she had been enduring humiliation, working in silence, carrying the weight of betrayal and resentment. She had watched him stride through the halls, commanding respect and admiration, pretending the home they shared had never been hers to protect, pretending that the life he had taken from her had no consequences. But now, hidden under that desk, she realized she was no longer powerless. She had been given a vantage point from which the entire truth would be laid bare. Every step of his approach, every word he uttered, became part of a symphony she had waited to hear. The room, usually empty except for the sterile hum of office machines, now felt alive with danger and opportunity. From under that desk, she could see the subtle gestures, the body language, the tension in every movement. Everything he thought was secret was suddenly visible to her eyes alone. The secretary's hand pressed lightly against her arm for reassurance, a silent acknowledgement that she was about to witness what could change everything. The anticipation sharpened her senses. She felt the air thicken, smelled the faint cologne he wore, noticed the tremor in his assistant's hands, and realized just how fragile the empire he had built on lies truly was. As the meeting began, the words spilled out, words of greed, betrayal, manipulation, and hidden motives. From under the desk, she absorbed every detail, every plan, every lie he thought was safe behind locked doors and confidential memos. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment where the facade crumbled, where his power was revealed as hollow, and where she, the woman he had discarded, became the silent witness to his undoing. She realized that what she heard wasn't just gossip or rumor. It was ammunition. It was leverage. It was explosive power wrapped in the guise of casual conversation. And it was hers for the taking. Her pulse raced not with fear, but with awakening. The whispers under the desk were more than just words. They were a call to action, a summons to reclaim what had been stolen, a signal that the time for silent suffering was over. Every betrayal, every humiliation, every day she had endured now converged into this singular point of opportunity. And as she listened, she understood the magnitude of what lay before her. She wasn't merely eavesdropping, she was being handed the blueprint to her revenge, the roadmap to justice, and the key to finally turning the tables on the man who thought he had destroyed her life. The whisper under the desk didn't just change the moment. It changed her entire destiny. The truth did not fall softly. It crashed into her like a wrecking force, tearing through every illusion she had once held. Under that desk, squeezed between shadows and shattered hopes, she listened as her husband revealed everything he had worked so desperately to hide. His voice, once the sound she trusted more than her own heartbeat, now dripped with arrogance, manipulation, and venom. Every word carved a deeper wound, yet at the same time forged an iron strength inside her. She learned the real reason he kicked her out wasn't stress, wasn't needing space, wasn't incompatibility. It was greed, pure and poisonous. He had been planning for months to erase her from both his life and his company, constructing a narrative that made her look unstable, unworthy, and disposable. He spoke casually about the assets he had hidden, the accounts he drained behind her back, the forged paperwork that transferred her share of the business to his name. She heard him laughing about how easy it had been to manipulate the courts, paying off the right people, fabricating documents, and weaving lies that stripped her of everything she had built alongside him. But the truth dug deeper still. She listened as he bragged about the young secretary he had used as a shield, how he threatened her job if she didn't obey, how he blamed her for every misstep when in reality she was trapped, terrified, and suffocating. The secretary's trembling hands finally made sense. She was living in the same prison of fear he had forced his wife into. She heard about illegal deals cloaked behind charity work, money laundered through subsidiaries, and the upcoming business move he planned to make using funds stolen from employees' benefits. It was corruption stacked on cruelty, betrayal layered upon betrayal, and in that cramped darkness under the desk, she realized the truth wasn't just painful. It was empowering. Because every lie he spoke, every confession he carelessly delivered, became a weapon in her hands. She felt her old self, the broken, discarded woman, burn away, replaced by something sharper, stronger, unstoppable. The truth didn't destroy her. It rebuilt her with fire. And as his voice echoed through the office like the roar of a dictator soon to fall, she vowed that she would rise from this darkness and make him face every piece of the truth he thought she'd never know. Her revenge did not roar. It unfolded with the quiet, lethal elegance of a blade sliding through silk. She emerged from the shadows not as a victim, not as the abandoned wife he expected to fade into nothing, but as a strategist, a warrior, a woman reborn. With every truth she had gathered under that desk, she stitched together a plan so precise, so devastating, that his empire never stood a chance. She reached out to the right people, the lawyer he didn't know she still trusted, the accountant he thought he had scared into silence, the employees he underpaid and mistreated. She gathered allies not through threats but through integrity, strength, and justice. Piece by piece, she built her case, documenting every confession, every fraudulent act, every illegal transaction. She didn't scream, didn't confront him prematurely, didn't expose her knowledge with foolish haste. She waited. She analyzed. She struck only when every piece was perfectly aligned. And when she finally walked into the boardroom, clean uniform replaced by confidence and truth, the room shifted. Executives stared, lawyers stiffened, even the secretary lifted her chin with pride. She dropped her evidence like thunder. Audio recordings, documents, emails, proof of bribery, fraud, and abuse. His entire empire cracked under the weight of her quiet brilliance. He tried to deny it, but the walls closed in fast. The board voted him out. Authorities were alerted. Investors withdrew support. His partners abandoned him. His kingdom crumbled because the queen he discarded returned with the power he never imagined she possessed. She didn't gloat. She didn't humiliate. She simply reclaimed what was hers: custody of the children, financial security, her stake in the company, and the dignity he tried to steal. Her revenge echoed far beyond the moment. It taught her children strength. It freed the secretary from fear. It restored justice in a place drowning in corruption. And as he watched everything he built collapse, she walked away. Not with anger, but with grace, leaving him to choke on the consequences of his own greed. That was her victory. Quiet, precise, unstoppable. In the end, her journey was never just about surviving. It was about rising. From the moment he heartlessly threw her out, she could have crumbled, allowed bitterness to consume her, or let humiliation dictate her worth. But she didn't. She took the blows, the rejections, the sleepless nights, and turned them into fuel. Every mop stroke, every trash bag, every silent hour spent in the shadows of his office became a step toward reclaiming what was stolen from her. She transformed pain into strategy, sorrow into power, and betrayal into unstoppable determination. She became a mother who didn't just provide. She protected, she built, she conquered. The whispers under the desk didn't just reveal secrets. They illuminated a path to justice, and she walked that path with precision. The truth she discovered wasn't just shocking. It was explosive. Every lie he told, every plan he believed was hidden, became her weapon. And when the moment came to strike, she didn't lash out blindly. She struck with strategy, grace, and relentless intelligence. Her revenge wasn't about humiliation. It was about exposure, accountability, and reclamation. She rebuilt her life on her own terms, taking back her dignity, her stake in the company, and most importantly, the security and future of her children. She became the architect of justice in a world where deceit had once held the upper hand. Her ex-husband, the man who thought power was in arrogance and manipulation, discovered too late that the greatest power lay in the woman he discarded. Her calm, unwavering resolve shattered his empire and left him powerless, watching as the truth dismantled the life he thought he controlled. The secretary, once a trembling bystander, found freedom in her courage. And her children, who had watched their mother endure, now witnessed the transformation of a woman who could take betrayal and turn it into triumph. This victory didn't just end in the office or in court. It echoed through their lives, proving that strength, intelligence, and perseverance can outmatch greed, cruelty, and arrogance. But her story is more than revenge. It is a lesson, a call to action, and an inspiration for anyone who has been betrayed, underestimated, or silenced. It is a reminder that pain can ignite power, that injustice can fuel brilliance, and that the fire of a determined heart is unstoppable. If this story inspired you, if her courage and strategy sparked a fire in you, don't just let it end here. Subscribe now to join a community of viewers who celebrate strength, justice, and empowerment. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next story of triumph against betrayal, the next tale of clever revenge, the next journey of someone reclaiming their power. Her victory proves one thing: betrayal can break you, but awakening your strength will make you unstoppable. Subscribe now, stay connected, and witness the next powerful story that reminds us all: never underestimate the woman who refuses to be defeated.